Hello, everyone. This is Joe Boston with Real Estate for Life and Dallas Real Estate Investment Group. I'm going to be talking to you today about 10 ways to fund your deals. I thought this would be an appropriate topic because with the cost rising for every single thing from food to energy, gas, and obviously housing, you have to become more strategic than ever to make sure that you are going to realize a profit. So, you need to understand that really it's not about just how much money you have, it's about how much money you have access to. And so I'm going to walk you through the 10 ways to fund your deals. But when I'm talking to people at the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, you know, it's real interesting because money is actually like number three, of importance to most individuals. And how it was put to me is if someone offered you $1 million, but you were going to have a heart attack or you were going to lose your health, would you make that deal? Or if someone offered you $1 million, but your family member had to pass away or do something uh, that wasn't ethical, would you do it? So most people would answer no, if you have a good relationship with your family. But then money comes into play. So with that being said, money's not the most important thing, but it fuels it's and is the language of business, right? And that's what most people work for because it funds your utility and what things you like to do. And so it's really important that we put that in perspective. But the slide that I have before you shares with you the 10 things that I think uh, is important for you to understand. And so we're going to walk through those things. And so, as you can see on the screen, the number one item is cash. And so, that's your liquid cash that you have in a bank account, on your mattress, but that's tangible cash you can actually use to spend. Now, why cash, like they'll say, is really, we say is dead, is because if you just have a bundle of cash with you, it's not making you any money. And actually it's a debt instrument. So if it's just sitting in a bank account not doing anything, actually that's considered debt that is kind of negative because as inflation rises, then your value of cash goes down. And so you don't want to have it just sitting there. Number two is cash that you receive from a cash out refinance. That's if you refinance your house or some of your assets. And then again, you have a lump sum of cash sitting there. Typically, you're going to do that for a specific purpose. But that is one thing I want to say is important because that allows you the ability to leverage, which I don't care what business you're in, leveraging is the way of the world because as things become more expensive, rarely will you have enough to pay cash for most things. So as you'll remember, if you go back 10 years, vehicle costs, were in 20 and $30,000 range. Now you'll see vehicles in the 50 to $80,000 range. So a lot of people will have to provide some type of financing for that. So you need to have access to that money. Private money, as most of us know, that's your friends, family, people that believe in you, trust you, that have money that will invest in whatever project or interest you have. So why that's important is because if you can develop a streamlined funnel for private money, then to fund your deals, it's not as difficult because, as you all know, if you go to a traditional bank, and hard money. I mean, you're going to have to provide a lot of documentation and then have experience, and to obtain that money. And then they don't fund 100%. So if you can find a private money source, that's your best bet. But typically, you'll come to groups like us at Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, get the experience, partner with someone, and then that'll provide you with the ability to present to whoever your private money lender is the ability for you to close the deal or close the transaction or finish the project. And so, there's steps to private money. Then friends and family, obviously they know you. It's not so much based on your experience, but your relationship. So that is a way to access money. If you have a cousin, a grandparent, someone that has, a 401k or some money sitting there, like we said, or a bunch of cash that's doing nothing, that's a way to tap into that stream of funding and maybe not have as high an interest rate. Equity partners, this is where you're going to complete a project, do a fix and flip, work with someone else, and then share in the expense and also share in the gain or the profit. I think this is more common now, but just you have to make sure that you understand all the legal ramifications and also you make sure you have all the right contracts in place so that if something does happen, both parties or multiple parties are covered. This is actually a really good thing to do nowadays because you can actually do larger projects and scale. And so, the saying is a whole lot of uh, something is better than a whole lot of nothing, right? So we want to make sure that you're actually doing projects. And I keep saying that because if you don't have funds and you're stopping projects to go find money and stopping and starting, it actually isn't flowing in your process. It actually will hinder you. So if you're working on all these processes, then you'll always have access. Then sell your other assets. So you might have, vehicles, or some people do the stair step, right? So where you'll have a house you start with, and then you might live in it for a while. And then what you'll do after a year, let's say you rehab it, you sell it for a higher price than what you bought it for. And then you can go into another property that's of higher value. But what you can also do is take some of the assets you might have had that you're not using anymore. I know a lot of people do have, vehicles or jewelry or things like that that have high value to create that cash or that funding for your projects or your down payments. So that's one of the things that you can actually do. The next is a home equity line of credit. And that is really important. If you have equity in your property that you can actually pull out and use to fund or the down payments to actually acquire other, income producing assets, this is a really good way to do that. The next one is an unsecured line of credit. So that is like your credit cards. So we have a process called the credit game. And this is really important. You can build your credit score up by doing this, but you're using it for income producing assets. But the unsecured lines of credit, you have to be really disciplined because if you are running up the balances on your credit cards, you want to make sure you're not leaving those balances on too long. But what companies like is you to have significant balances and they can see that you're paying them off and running money through those channels. And then your credit lines go up, which means you have more access. Your utilization will go down, meaning that if you have 300,000, you can spend more and without hitting like that 30% threshold, and you'll stay under that, and so you'll be able to acquire more things and have access to more funds. Then a secured line of credit, that is something that basically you'll have to use as collateral. You'll, instead of like a credit card, you'll just have something that you can securitize or collateralize. A lot of times what'll happen is, like in real estate, if you do have rental properties or something that you can collateralize and secure against that line of credit, and so that if something does happen, it makes it more stable for the lender to use that asset. That's a way to do that. And then hard money. Okay, so then hard money is basically um, it's a companies that are, we call it like private money, but there's companies now that will lend you money on asset-based projects. So they'll look at the project. Obviously, they want to be what's called in first lien position, which means they have the first lien on that property, and then they'll lend you a percentage, typically 75 to 70% of the loan to value, the amount of the loan, but it's at a higher interest rate. But these companies are going to look at you for your experience to make sure that you can actually start the project. You know, make sure that it's going to be be completed on time and then sell it on time. These are typically in 6-month increments when you're going to actually renew. Because again, of the interest, you're not going to want to hold these loans for very long. So you want to make sure before you get into a hard money situation, you understand that you're going to not be in it for very long. So this is where you could actually joint venture, work with people who could get the projects done faster than you are, learn, and then as you get more access to funds, then you can start utilizing your own. And so this is why a lot of people start using hard money first, and then they'll transition into getting enough capital for themselves, and then they'll actually start to buy properties on their own. So the next thing is seller finance. So seller finance is where a owner, a property owner, will actually finance that property to you, or we use what's called a wraparound mortgage, which will basically be a second lien that wraps around their first lien. And so I love this process because you don't have to get a mortgage. You can work and negotiate that with the seller or the owner of the property. And in these, like I said, these higher price environments and markets, this is a good process. Also, seller finance is really good in land deals. And so at the group, we actually have a circle or a process where you can actually learn how to buy land. So these are the 10, plus one, the 10 types of ways to fund your deals. And, we do have a lot of this information on our website at dallasreig.com. But let's talk a little bit more about the number one item, which is cash. So, rehabbers, when we're fixing and flipping, their largest cost is the access to capital, right? So if you don't actually get your interest rates down, that's what you're paying out is interest, which means profit to the lender. So that's why it's great to be a lender. So if you get to the point where you have enough money, becoming a lender and working with people like us that are experienced is a really good thing for you. Self-funding, if you start to pay cash for properties, it does, give you greater yields, but it ties up a lot of your cash. So one thing we like to do is have a mix where you're actually having some with cash, some that you're using cash plus a loan, or joint venturing. And like we said, with equity partners. So you're not overextending yourself. And then, like they say, cash is king. In this type of environment, what you'll see now is because of the higher price points, people that they can't play in the game, they can't play. So when we start going to places like the auction, uh, the real estate auctions or the sheriff sales, which is the tax sale, they require you to pay in cash. So sometimes you can get, a better value if you just pay in cash. But just remember this, when you pay in cash, it's not like you can't go back and refinance it, right? And put it back on a note and get your cash back out once that appreciates. So that's a really good process. But having cash, in times like this is really important. So that's what separates, a lot of times the rich and the not so rich, right? Because they're actually able to buy properties at a lower price because they can buy it right now, buy it for cash, and then let it appreciate and then sell it out versus having to go get capital or having to get funding, pay that premium, of interest to someone else. It's a slower process. So, sometimes cash is good, especially in uh, times like this. And so that's where friends and family and equity partners come into play. So that's really important to have those type of relationships. So do you make more money with uh, utilizing a leverage type of process? Absolutely. So you want to get yourself into the situation where you can do at least three projects at a time. We say you do one in, working on one, and selling one. So that's three. And then you keep that rolling over and over again. But that means you need to have access to the funds. So once you can get yourself working in a process like that, then you can do very well. And you'll always have something that you're working on. And in addition to that, and on a side note, you'll have crews and contractors that are working consistently that then they can give you a better deal because now they're scaling and giving them more work. So again, there's more ways to sell, like owner finance, lease purchase. There's a process called subject to, which a lot of people actually are starting to do now. In the DFW market, we have several people that are doing this. And I'll highlight two, which is Brian Carlson and Roger Pascal. They're doing that process. So they're very well versed in it. We do it at the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group as well. So it's a really good process, and it's similar to owner finance, but you want to learn that. Next is cash. It's less time critical on rehabs, meaning that you don't have a time crunch, meaning, like I said, there's a 6-month window typically, like you get that project done. But that means your cash is tied up. But again, you don't have all that interest that you're paying. So, regardless of what type of process you use to access money, don't lose your sense of urgency. You know, time is money, so you want to make sure you're scaling, having the right crews, getting your projects on the market. So if it slows down, at least you have it out there for sale. And then you can negotiate getting that done. So wanted to share with you the items that I think are important when it comes down to funding your deals. These are the types. When you look at them, you're like, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. But when you actually start to work on your money day to day to day, you'll see that some of these aren't as easy as you think. Just to highlight, private money is experience based. Friends and family, if you're fortunate enough to access, that's not so much. But again, then you can get experience. Equity partners is a lot of experience based processes. Uh, Selling your assets is something that you'd want to do if you're not using your assets or they're not income producing. That's something you want to do. And then the others, like HELOCs, unsecured lines of credit and secured lines of credit, those are relationships with financial institutions that you want to develop. And that's something that we work on all the time. Again, hard money as well. At our group, we do have hard money lenders. We have Longhorn that we work with. And, it's very easy to interact with Longhorn. They're a really good company. So, one thing they'll want to do is evaluate the asset, see if you have some experience. And they do many different types of real estate, like new construction. They'll also do fix and flip, obviously. So, want to share that with you. And hopefully you enjoyed that and you get to see and write these down. If you wherever you fall in this category, you want to start utilizing. If you do have just cash sitting there, that's just dead equity, just dead money sitting there. You want to be able to partner with someone to make more money, make that work for you. And again, if you have home equity that's just sitting there, it just really means nothing if you're not utilizing it. So if you are interested in learning more about these, we have more detail, obviously, about each one of these. And, we have relationships with people that can work with you to access that funding. So until next time, I will be sharing with you many different aspects of real estate and for you to use these type of funds to get involved in our projects. We do fix and flip, new construction, land, and then we also have business processes we work with, like being able to rent rent out houses, buy room, group homes. We've partnered with people or work with people, I should say, that do businesses like self storage, mobile home parks, RV parks. So we have those resources as well. So until next time, please visit us at Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, and I will see you later.